Hi everyone, Caryn Zinn here, dietitian. I want to talk about energy and calories or kilojoules. And I know a lot of people hate talking about calories, but they are important. So I want to talk about them. So number one, we're going to talk about calories. Number two, we're going to talk about what you can do to still make progress without having to count calories, because we don't want to spend our lives counting calories. So I wanted to start off just with some basics about calories or kilojoules. So a calorie or kilojoule is just a unit of energy. So carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and alcohol supply you with energy or calories, whereas vitamins and minerals don't supply you with any energy. They are involved in energy producing processes and metabolism of foods. Anyway, so I want to do a bit of a recap. So when it comes to calories, we have the following. So we have 1 gram of carbohydrate, which you might get from like the tiniest slice of, or the tiniest breadcrumb. 1 gram of carbohydrate gives you 4 calories. 1 gram of protein gives you 4 calories. 1 gram of fat gives you 9 calories. And 1 gram of alcohol gives you 7 calories. So you could see why traditionally diets that are seen to be high in fat are also seen to be high in calories, and that's how the kind of low-fat diet came into play with regards weight loss, because if you're eating lots of calories, you must be eating lots of fat, and if you cut your fat down, then you'll cut your calories down and then you will lose weight. And we all know that that is true. Absolutely. You can lose weight by being on a low-fat diet. We know that you can lose weight by being on a low-carb diet, a low-fat diet, a diet where you have shakes, a diet when you do some intermittent fasting, a vegetarian or vegan diet, a Mediterranean diet. You can jump up and down and lose weight. But we need to look slightly wider than just weight loss. We need to look at the quality of the foods we're eating. So that's your first lever, what we eat. So quality is really, really important. And we also need to look at how the foods interact with your body and various conditions that you might have, and how that can be sustainable long term. Because, of course, losing weight and regaining it a few months or a few weeks later is not really the ideal situation. Once you get that weight off, you want to keep it off for good. Now, I know that that doesn't always happen, and there are times in your life where you might pick up a few kilos, for example, during a lockdown or during a holiday, or during a very stressful time. So life's not quite as simple as losing weight and keeping it off for good. But as long as you know the tools that will help you, then that's really the ideal situation. So let me keep on task here and carry on about calories. So the golden question, and the question that most of my clients in my clinic actually ask me is, how many calories do I need to eat a day? And that's a really interesting question. And my answer is usually, I don't really know, because everyone's got, I have an inkling, but everyone has got a very, very different situation, different makeup, different metabolic rate, different rates of moving, different levels of exercise, all sorts of things. So we can calculate people's energy requirements on a daily basis, and we can do that using various equations. And these equations can sometimes overestimate and sometimes underestimate the amount of energy or calories we need every day. We can also use scientific methods, so we can drink a doubly labeled water, which is a substance which is labeled with a radioactive isotope, and it gets tracked throughout the body, and by extrapolations of the variables that you look at, you can work out what your energy expenditure is and then match it with your energy intake. And you can also do this via gas exchange. Now, we don't do this in practice. In fact, we don't even do it in research because it's so expensive. Doubly labeled water is incredibly expensive. So we sometimes use equations. But other times we just look at, well, I tend to look at what you're currently eating. What are you eating at the moment? And if you are in a state of weight maintenance, then you need to change that, or you need to reduce the overall calories to then achieve weight loss. So that can look like very different things for different people. Typically, if you look at the literature, it will say a typical female. I mean, I don't think a typical female or typical male actually exists really, but they do talk about a typical female, which might need the base level of calorie to sustain the metabolic rate at 1,500 calories, whereas a male might need to be between 1,800 and 2,000 calories. Now, again, this can be totally off or could be spot on, depending on the situation. So I want to talk a little bit about energy in a more sciencey sense as well when it comes to weight loss. And I know that you're all familiar with this lovely equation: energy in equals energy out. And if this isn't balanced, then your weight stays the same. You're in weight maintenance. Now, I know all the low carb advocates out there will go, well, it's not as simple as that, and it's nonsense, and we shouldn't be counting calories. And you're correct. You're absolutely correct in that it's not quite as simple as energy in, energy out, particularly if you're on a high carb, low fat diet. I'll come back to that point in a minute, but I want to explain actually what this means. So when it comes to energy in equals energy out, I want to just talk about what that is. So energy in is simply the food that you eat, whether it's carbs, protein, fat, or alcohol, or combination. That is that constitutes your energy in. Your energy out is made up of three things. So it's made up of your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, and also called your resting metabolic rate. And that is the amount of calories that is required for you to have basic functions. So for your heart to beat, for your nerves to transmit, for your breathing, for your existence, really. And that is said to be around 1,500 calories for females, just to survive. Now, you and I will both know that if you have ever been on like Weight Watchers or some other diet, and you've reduced to 1,200 calories or even lower sometimes, you don't suddenly stop functioning. So it's not quite as simple as we have learned in the past. Next one, TEF, thermic effect of food. So that is really the calories that is required for your food to be metabolized, to break down. So interestingly, when your food breaks down, it actually releases energy, and it also requires energy for that to take place. And finally, we have exercise, and that is really, so that's all of your energy expenditure, and your exercise is one that you can change the most. So you can sit on the couch like a couch potato and burn no calories, or you can train for Ironman and burn a zillion calories, and that will change your energy expenditure. Now, if you are a high carb person and you move to a low carb diet, energy in, energy out is there's something that is different. And what is different is that there might be a metabolic advantage in that your standard energy in, energy out equation doesn't take into consideration the interaction between hormones, between neurotransmitters, and between nutrients. So suddenly, if you go low carb and your insulin drops down, you might have a better chance of losing weight and keeping it off. But the reality is that you are most likely still going to be in an energy deficit. In other words, you are eating less than your body needs to maintain the level of weight that's sitting on it. I hope this is making sense to everyone, and I'm not just rattling on. But my parting point for the first one about calories and kilojoules is that even if you are metabolically well regulated, and let's say you want a lowish carb diet or good quality whole food diet, you can still overeat calories. So if you eat lots of fat, and fat, as we know, is calorie dense, it doesn't magically disappear once you have satisfied your bodily requirements for maintenance. The rest of the calories, if you continue eating that cheese, it doesn't magically disappear. So calories do count. Okay, so that is really important. Another point that I want to make is when you look at the difference between something like a chocolate cake, a piece of chocolate cake, standard chocolate cake, or a piece of, say, low carb or keto cake that you've made with low carbohydrate keto type ingredients, what might be the difference between those two options? And the difference is that the second option is better quality. It's going to be lower in sugar and carbohydrate for sure. But from an energy perspective, they potentially might be equal. So another example there is what is the difference calorie-wise between a 50-gram piece of chocolate. So you've got, let's say, half a Moro bar or Milky Bar or something, and a 30-gram, which is a size of a matchbox, a 30-gram slice of cheese plus a 30-gram slice of salami. So you've got a piece of salami and cheese versus some chocolate. What is the difference there? Well, one's got lots of protein and fat. The other one has got lots of sugar, and that's pretty much it. But they both are totaling 245 calories. So what I'm trying to say is lever one might be look at what you eat. Lever three is all about how much you eat. So if you are going to eat something for a snack, for example, if you choose the piece of cheese and salami, you're definitely satisfying lever one what you eat. But remember that how much you eat is important as well. So if you are not losing weight and you're eating top quality food, it's likely that you are eating too much of that. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about number one, energy, calories, kilojoules. Number two, I'd like to just talk about what you can do to still make progress without having to count calories. And the answer to this is very straightforward. You can cut down pretty much. So the sciencey way of doing it is to go right. Let's track your intake on an app or something for a few days. Let's see how many calories you're getting, and if your weight is maintained, then what we can do is we can reduce your calories. We can drop your calories and see where you sit. And that calorie reduction of around 500 to 800 calories might mean, or hopefully will mean, that you will lose some weight. So number two is what can you do to still make progress but not count calories? You can cut down. So the best thing to do is to not snack. Okay, your morning tea, your afternoon tea, your after dinner, those are just extra calories. It doesn't matter if you get it from salami or cheese. As opposed to a chocolate, it still is calories. And a snack might be between 200 and 300 calories. And basically, if you're always eating snacks and you cut out your snacks, that might be your 500, 600, 700 calories needed to lose a half to 1 kilogram of body fat per week until your calorie deficit runs out. So that's pretty profound when you look at it that way. So number one, no snacking. Number two, smaller portions. So literally, if you don't want to count calories and you're used to eating a big plate, you can just make it smaller. So make your piece of meat smaller. We don't want to make your vegetables smaller, but if you've got starchy vegetables, you might make that smaller. Your breakfast meal, you might make that a little bit smaller. So there are lots of ways and means you can do it. If you go out to a restaurant for a treat meal, you can just make it smaller or order an entree rather than a main meal. The third thing you can do is watch the calorie intake in your drinks. So that's where calories absolutely catch up to people. Sadly, alcohol is very, very calorific. But that is one way that you can address your total calorie intake without necessarily having to count your calories. As long as you know where calories come from, and you know that you need to eat less or drink less, then that should be a little bit straightforward. I hope I'm not cutting out like someone said I am. Okay. Hi there, interesting. I'm sure I eat too much. Look, if you think you eat too much, then you likely do. Here's the interesting thing. If you are following all the rules, if you are pulling the good levers, lever number one, what you're eating. If you're eating good quality food. Number two, if you are doing a little bit of intermittent fasting when you eat, and you are still not losing weight, then there are two things. You are eating too much of something, okay? And that's where tracking can be helpful. You're eating too much of something, find out what that is, and navigate through and see what you can change and how you can change. Number two, it might very well be that if you're doing everything right and you're on really low calories and you're pretty convinced that everything's going well and you are consistent, that's key. If you're consistent and you're still not dropping weight, it might be that you are going through a really high stress period in your life. Your stress hormones, your cortisol, your adrenaline, your interaction of your hypothalamic pituitary axis, so your stress axis, your reproduction axis, your physiology is working against you to prevent you from losing weight. And that is a very real issue for some people. So a lot of the time when I talk to people about calories and changing their diet and then not losing weight, we then look at stress and mindfulness, and that it sort of shows itself as being a problem when people address it and they get some good outcomes.